Huainanzi Part 10. 10.1 The way at its highest has nothing above it, at its lowest it has nothing below it. It is more even than a carpenter's level, straighter than a marking cord, rounder than a compass, and more square than a carpenter's square. It embraces the cosmos and is without outside or inside. Cavernous and undifferentiated, it covers and supports with nothing to hinder it. Therefore, those who embody the way are not sorrowful or joyful, are not happy or angry. They sit without disturbing thoughts, and sleep without dreams. One things come, and they name them. Affairs arise, and they respond to them. 210/82/15, 1710.2 The ruler is the heart of the state. When the heart is well ordered, the 100 joints are all secure. When the heart is unsettled, the 100 joints are all confused. Thus if your heart is well ordered, your limbs and body can ignore each other. If your state is well ordered, ruler and minister can forget each other. 310/82/19, 2010.3 The Yellow Emperor said, broad and infinite, I follow heaven's way, and my chi is identical with the origin. For thus when the ruler has perfected potency, his words are identical with his plans, his actions are identical with his intentions. Above and below are of one mind. 10/82/20, 2110.4 Those who have no divergent paths or distorted views erect barriers to falling into depravity, open the path to following goodness. Thus the people will turn toward the foursquare. Thus the Changes says, unite the people in the fields. It is advantageous to cross the great river. 510/82/21, 2210.5 The way is what guides things, potency is what supports nature. Humaneness is visible proof of accumulated kindness. 6 Rightness is what comports with the human heart and conforms to what is appropriate for the majority of humankind. 7 Thus when the way was extinguished, potency was employed. When potency declined, humaneness and rightness were born. 8 Thus the earliest era embodied the way but did not have potency. The middle period had potency but did not cherish it. 9 The latter-day era was anxious and fearful lest even humaneness and rightness be lost. 10/82/24, 2610.6 If not for humaneness and rightness, the superior man would have nothing to live for. If he loses humaneness and rightness, he will lose the reason for his existence. If not for cravings and desires, the petty man would have nothing to live for. If he loses his cravings and desires, he will lose his reason for living. Thus the superior man fears losing rightness. The petty man fears losing what is valuable to him. 10 When we look at what people fear, we understand how different they are. 10/82/24, 28 The Changes says, chasing a deer without a guide. It goes into the forest. For the superior man to follow it would not be so good as to abandon it. Should he follow it, he would encounter difficulty. 1110/82/30 10.7 If your generosity is ample, your reward will be great. If your hatred is great, your misfortune will be profound. To give meagerly yet hope extravagantly, to nurture hatred yet be free of suffering, such has never been the case from ancient times until the present. This is why the sage looks into things that have gone before and so understands what is to come. 10/82/30, 10/83/2 10.8 Might not one say that the sagely way is like a wine jar set up in the middle of an intersection? People passing by will pour some out. Some will take more, some less, in unequal amounts, but all will get what they think is appropriate. 12 For this reason, the way to obtain the allegiance of one person is the same as the way to obtain the allegiance of 100. 10/83/2, 310.9 If people take as the standard what they desire from their superiors and apply it to the way they treat their subordinates, who would not support them? If they take what they desire from their subordinates as a standard for treating their superiors, who would not like them? The Ode says, beloved is the one man the king. In his responses to the lords of the land, he follows potency. 13. The careful exercise of potency is great. The one man is small. If you do good in the small, you can do good in the great. 10/83/3, 510.10 When the superior man sees the ruler's transgressions, he forgets about punishment for pointing it out. Thus he is able to remonstrate. When he sees a worthy, he forgets about the worthy's low rank. Thus he is able to yield modestly. When he sees others who do not have enough, he forgets his own poverty. Thus he is able to give charitably. 1410/83/710.11 Feelings are attached to one's center, i.e., the heart. Conduct is manifested on one's outside. Whenever conduct stems from feelings, though it is excessive, it will cause no resentment. Whenever it does not stem from feelings, though one's conduct is loyal, it will bring bad consequences. 10/83/7, 810.12 Lord Millet brought wide-ranging benefits to the world, but still he did not brag about it. You neither wasted his efforts nor wasted his resources, but he still regarded himself as deficient. Those to whom fullness is like a sinkhole, and substance is like emptiness get the most out of them. 10/83/10, 1110.13 All people find worthy what pleases them and are pleased by what makes them happy. There is no age that does not promote worthies. But some rulers thereby bring order, some bring chaos. It is not that rulers deceive themselves, it is just that they seek out worthies who are the same as themselves. But if the ruler is not necessarily a worthy himself and he looks for someone just like himself hoping in that way to obtain a worthy, it certainly is not going to work. To let Yao evaluate Shun is permissible, but to let Ji evaluate Yao is like using a Shen to measure a Dan, i.e., they are incommensurable. 1510/83/13, 1510.14 Now if you call a fox a raccoon dog, 16 It is certain that you do not know what a fox is, nor do you know what a raccoon dog is. If it is not that you have never seen a fox, then surely you have never seen a raccoon dog. In one sense a fox and a raccoon dog do not differ, as they belong to the same class of animals. But if you call a fox a raccoon dog, you do not know either the fox or the raccoon dog. 17 For this reason, if you call a worthless person a worthy, it is certain you do not know what a worthy is. If you call a worthy a worthless person, it is certain you do not know what a worthless person is. 10/83/15, 1710.15 When a sage is above, i.e., in power, then the people rejoice in his governance. When he is below, out of power, then the people admire his steadfastness. When a petty man is in high position, it is like bedding down on a gate or keeping cocoons in the sunshine. 18 One would not get a moment's peace. Thus the Changes says, mounting the horse, it turns about, weeping blood, it flows torrentially. 19 This means that when a petty man is in a position beyond his station, he will not last long in it. 10/83/19, 2110.16 There is nothing that does not have some use. Tianxiang and Wuhui 20 are the most virulently poisonous of herbs, but a good physician uses them to save people's lives. Dwarves and blind musicians are the troubled invalids of humankind, but the ruler of men uses them to perform music. For this reason, the sage prepares even the shavings from the timber. 21 There is nothing that he does not use. 10/83/23, 2410.17 With one shout, a brave warrior can cause the three armies to retreat. What disperses them is his complete sincerity. 22 Thus if you command, but the troops do not comply harmoniously, if you have intentions, but the troops do not support you, it surely is the case that something is not in accord with your inner heart. 23 Thus the reason that Shun, without descending from his mat, was able to preserve the world was because he sought it within himself. 24 Thus if the ruler makes more and more excuses, the people will practice more and more deceit. To have a body that is crooked and a shadow that is straight, such a thing has never been heard of. 10/83/26, 10/84/2 10.18 What persuasive speech cannot get at, appearance and demeanor can get at. What appearance and demeanor cannot get at, a flash of emotion can express. What is stimulated in the mind then becomes clear in the intelligence, finally it issues forth and takes form. The essence, 25 at its utmost, can shape the dynamics of an encounter, but it cannot give clear warning. 10/84/4, 5 10.19 The horses of the wrong and D people all can run and gallop. Some go short distances, some go far, but only Zaofa could get the most out of the horse's strength. The peoples of the three Miao tribes all can be made loyal and trustworthy. Some are worthy, some are worthless, but only Tang 26 and Yu 27 could integrate their good points. They must have possessed something that cannot be transmitted. Earl Mu of Zhonghang seized a tiger with his bare hands, but he could not capture it alive. No doubt his physical strength was outstanding, but his ability did not extend that far. 2810/84/7, 910.20 If you use what 100 people can do, you will obtain the strength of 100 people. If you promote what 1,000 people love, you will gain the hearts of 1,000 people. By analogy, it is like chopping down a tree and pulling out its roots. Of the 1,000 branches and the 10,000 leaves, none can fail to follow. 10/84/9, 1010.21 The kindly father's love for his son is not in order to be repaid 29 but because the love cannot be removed from his heart. The sage king's nurturance of his people is not because he seeks to use them but because his nature cannot do otherwise. It is like fire, which is naturally hot, and ice, which is naturally cold. What cultivation is necessary for that? When it comes to relying on the strengths of others or trusting to the merits of others, it is like a fire on a boat. 30 Thus the superior man sees the beginning and knows the end. 10/84/12, 14 10.22 Matchmakers praise people, but not because they esteem them. People hire laborers and force-feed them, but not because they love them. One's own loving father and kind mother could do no more than this. But when something is done for a purpose, kindness does not enter into it. Thus you do not see off guests in the same way you greet them. 31 What you give to the dead is not what you set aside for the living. Sincerity comes from the self, but what is moved by it is far off. 10/84/14, 16 10.23 To dress in brocades and embroidery and ascend the ancestral temple is to value outer refinement. To hold Gui and Zhang tablets 32 in front of yourself is to esteem inner substance. If your outer refinement does not overwhelm your inner substance, you may be called a superior man. 33 Therefore, it takes a year to build a chariot, but if it lacks a 3-inch long linchpin, you cannot gallop off in it. 34 It takes a carpenter to frame up a door, but without a foot-long door latch, you cannot close it securely. Therefore when the superior man acts, he thinks about the results. 10/84/18, 20 10.24 The essence of the heart can transform others like a spirit, but it cannot point out things to them. The essence of the eye can cut through obscurities, but it cannot give clear warning. What lies within the dark and obscure cannot be verbalized to others. Thus, Shun did not descend from his mat, and the world was ordered. The tyrant Ji did not leave his throne, and the world was disordered. 35 Certainly, feelings are deeper than spoken commands. To seek from others what one lacks in oneself such has never been heard of from ancient times to the present. 10/84/22, 24 10.25 If the speech is identical but the people trust it in some cases, it is because trust preceded the speech. If the command is identical but the people are transformed by it in some cases, it is because sincerity lay beyond the command. 36 When sages rule above and the people are moved and transformed, it is because their feelings have paved the way for them. When there is movement above and no response below, it is because feelings and orders are at variance with one another. Thus the Changes says, the overbearing dragon will have reason to regret. 3710/84/24, 2610.26. A 3-month-old infant does not yet understand the distinction between benefit and harm, but the love of a kind mother is conveyed to the infant because of her feelings. Thus the usefulness of what is spoken, how manifestly tiny it is. The usefulness of what is not spoken, how vastly great it is. 10/84/26, 2710.27. To personify the words of a superior man is trustworthiness. To internalize the resolve of a superior man is loyalty. 38. When loyalty and trust form internally, the stimulus impels a response externally. Thus when you grasped a shield and a battle axe and danced on the double staircase, the 3 Miao tribes submitted to his rule. 39. When an eagle hovers above the river, fish and turtles plunge and flying birds scatter. By necessity they distance themselves from harm. 10/84/27, 10/85/110.28. A son dying for his father or a minister dying for his ruler is something that has happened throughout the ages. It is not that they died for the sake of fame, but that they harbored within themselves a kindly heart, and so they could not walk away from the troubles of the father or ruler. Thus people's delight in what they find agreeable does not exactly create a path for them, the path is simply there and they follow it. The superior man's sorrowful despondency does not exactly take definite form, but it is conveyed to the hearts of others. It is not something that comes in from outside but something that emerges from within one's own center, i.e., the human heart. 10/85/1310.29. Rightness is more exalted than a ruler. Humaneness is more intimate than a father. Thus the ruler in relation to his ministers has the power to kill them or let them live, but he cannot force them to do their jobs with negligent unconcern. A father in relation to his children has the power to reject them or raise them, but he cannot force them to be without anxious concern. 40. Thus when rightness transcends the ruler himself, and humaneness transcends the father himself, the ruler is exalted and his ministers are loyal, the father is compassionate and his children are filial. 10/85/5, 610.30. When sages rule, they transform and nurture the people in a spirit-like way. If the ruler was of the highest type, the people said, "I do this because it is my nature." If the ruler was of the next rank, the people said, "How subtle he is to be that way." Thus the Ode says, he manages the reins of government as if they were the silk ribbons of a dancer. 41. The Changes says, concealing his elegance, he is able to persevere. 42. 10/85/8910.31. Actions undertaken near at hand cause a civilizing influence to spread far away. Now when he examined his evening gate, the Duke of Zhou was embarrassed by his shadow. Thus the superior man scrutinizes himself in solitude. 43. To abandon what is close at hand in expectation of what is far off is to obstruct one's path. 10/85/9, 1010.32. To hear of goodness is easy. To use it to correct oneself is difficult. Now when the master saw the 3 alterations of grain, i.e., seed, sprout, and ripened form, he sighed deeply and said, "The fox turns its head toward its burrow and dies. But my head droops like grain." 44. Thus when the superior man sees goodness, he takes pains with respect to himself. If your own self is rectified, then transforming the far off by example will be easy. Thus the Ode says, you do not act personally, you do not show affection, and the common people do not trust you. 45. 10/85/12, 1410.33. In his pursuit of affairs, the petty man says, "If only I could get what I want." The superior man says, "If only I could practice rightness." In seeking something they are the same, what they are expecting is different. If you strike the planks of a boat in the middle of the water, fish plunge and birds scatter. They hear the same thing, they behave differently. Their feelings are one. 46. 10/85/16, 1710.34. For setting out a pot of food, Shifuji 47 received a commendatory inscription at his village gate. For giving a packet of dried meat to Lingjia, 48 Zhao Xianmeng 49 saved his own life. As acts of propriety, these were not outstanding, but they overflowed with moral potency. Thus when a humane heart's responsive kindness connects with another, sympathetic sorrow is born. Thus it enters deeply into the hearts of others. 10/85/17, 1810.35 With a piercing cry, the family elder arouses kindness and generosity, whereas the creditor elicits competition and strife. Therefore it is said, there are no weapons more fearsome than the human will. The Moi sword is inferior to it. There are no assailants greater than yin and yang. The drum and drumstick are smaller than them. 10/85/18, 2010.36 When sages practice goodness, it is not to seek fame, yet fame follows. They do not expect fame to be accompanied by profit, yet profit comes to them. Thus people's anxiety and happiness are not the result of following a deliberate path. The path takes them there, and the feelings emerge. Thus the very highest sages do not concern themselves with outward appearances. Thus they are as if rubbing their eyes when smarting, grabbing a support when stumbling. 10/85/22, 2310.37 The sage's conduct of government is silent and does not make a display of worthiness. Only after his reign has come to an end do you know that it can be considered great. It is like the movement of the sun, even the great horse Kiji cannot compete with how far it goes. 10/85/23, 2410.38 When we seek something at night, we are as blind as a music master. But when the eastern sky opens, how bright it is! When you act with a view toward gain, loss follows. Thus the changes says, stripping them away, they are not successively exhausted, thus they are received again in returning. 5010/85/24, 2610.39 Amassing the thin makes the thick. Amassing the low makes the hot. Thus every day the superior man works diligently and thereby attains glory. Every day the petty man works shoddily and thereby reaps ignominy. But the increments of diminution and increase are such that even Li Zu could not clearly discern them. 10/86/1, 210.40 King Wen listened for what was good as if he could not attain it and dwelt on what was not good as if it were an unlucky portent. It was not that the days were insufficient. His anxious concern within himself compelled him to do so. Thus the Ode says, though Zhou is an old country, its mandate is new. 5110/86/2, 310.41 If you cherish feelings and embrace inherent qualities, heaven cannot kill you, earth cannot bury you. Your voice will resound throughout the space between heaven and earth, and your brightness will match the sun and moon. This is because you take joy in it. 10/86/3, 410.42 If you turn to goodness, even if you err, you will not be censured. If you do not turn to goodness, even if you are loyal, you will invite calamity. Thus being censorious toward others is not so good as being censorious toward yourself. Seeking it, i.e., goodness in others, is not so good as seeking it in yourself. 5210/86/4, 510.43 Sounds sound themselves. Appearances display themselves. Names announce themselves. People 53 find their appropriate functions themselves. There is nothing that is not intrinsic. 54 The spear is wielded to pierce. The sword is wielded to stab. That things announce themselves is apparent. What cause do they have to resent others? Thus, Guanz's patterned brocade was ugly, but he ascended the ancestral temple. Zikin's 55 dyed silk was beautiful, but he gained no respect. 5610/86/7, 810.44 Empty yet able to be filled, insipid yet acquiring flavor, wearing coarse garments but embracing a jade scepter. 57 Thus, when of two minds, you cannot obtain the allegiance of even one person, When of one mind, you can obtain the allegiance of 100. 5810/86/9, 10.45 If a boy plants an orchid, it will be beautiful but will not be fragrant. If a stepson is fed, he will grow fat but will not flourish. This is because feelings are not mutually shared in the intercourse between them. 5910/86/12 10.46 Life is a dwelling that you borrow, death is a home to which you return. Thus, Huainan, 60 upright and humane, stood up and died. Prince Liu 61 bared his chest to receive the knife. They would not let what was temporarily entrusted to them harm that to which they would return. Thus, when the age is well governed, you use rightness to protect yourself. When times are disordered, you use yourself to protect rightness. 62 The day that you die marks the end of your actions. Therefore, the superior man is careful every single time he uses his person. 10/86/12 14 10.47 Those who lack bravery are not initially faint-hearted, but when difficulties arise, they lose their self-control. Those who are greedy and covetous are not initially lustful, but when they see profit they forget the harm involved. When the Duke of Yu saw the jade bai of Chuiji, he did not know that the calamity of Guo would befall him. 63 Thus only the most advanced human beings cannot be repressed or diverted. 10/86/16, 17 10.48 People's desire for glory is for their own sake. What good is that to others? But when sages act to implement rightness, their anxious concern emanates from within. What benefit is it to them personally? Thus emperors and kings have been numerous, but the 3 kings alone are praised. The poor and lowly have been numerous, but Boyi 64 alone is esteemed. Does being wealthy make you a sage? Then sages would be numerous. Does being poor make you humane? Then the humane would be numerous. Why, then, are sages and humane people so rare? Oh, what a joy is an independent and focused resolve. 10/86/19, 21 10.49 As each day rolls by hastily and the days renew themselves, you forget that old age will come upon you. From your young and tender years, to your becoming gray and old, the years inevitably pile up in this way. If you do not deceive yourself, you will not deceive others. It is like crossing a bridge made from a single log. Just because there is no one else present does not mean you do not struggle to maintain your countenance. Thus it is easy to get people to trust you, but difficult to trust yourself should you cloak yourself in deceptive clothing. 10/86/21, 24 10.50 When feelings precede actions, no action is unsuccessful. When nothing is unsuccessful, there is no vexation. Released from vexation, you become content. Thus, the comportment of Tanyao and Yushan was such that it did not violate their feelings. They pleased themselves, and the world was well ordered. The tyrants Ji and Zhao were not intentionally thuggish. They pleased themselves, and the many concerns of government were laid waste. When their likes and dislikes are critiqued, order and disorder are distinguished. 10/86/24, 10/87/2 10.51 The actions of the sage are not joined with anything and are not separated from anything. By analogy, it is like a drum. There is no instrument that is in tune with it, and no instrument that cannot be accompanied by it. 10/87/4 10.52 With instruments of silk, strings, and bamboo or metal and stone, their size and length have gradations. 65 They make different sounds, but they harmonize. With ruler and official or superior and subordinate, their offices and functions have grades. They perform different tasks but act in unison. Now the weaver daily advances while the tiller daily retreats. Their tasks move in opposite directions, but in accomplishment they are one. 10/87/4, 6 10.53 Shen Shi heard a beggar's song and was saddened. When he went out to see who it was his mother. 66 At the Battle of Ailing, King Fuke of Wu 67 said, "The Yu raise their voices. Such is the multitude of Wu." 68 What was the same was that there were voices, but the beliefs derived from them were different, they were inherent in the respective feelings of the singers. 69 Thus, if the heart is sad, the song is not joyful. If the heart is joyful, the wailing is not sorrowful. After the 3 years of mourning were over, Minzijian picked up his chin and played. The master said, his playing was correct, but it sounded wrong. 7010/87/6, 810.54 Culture is the means by which we connect to things. Feelings bind inwardly, but desires manifest themselves externally. If you use culture to obliterate feelings, feelings will be lost. If you use feelings to obliterate culture, culture will be lost. When the guiding patterns of culture and feelings interpenetrate, the phoenix and the kylin will roam extensively. That is to say, the embrace of your utmost potency will be far-reaching. 10/87/8, 1110.55 Xu Xiang 71 said to his son, "A good workman immerses himself in his square and his chisel. Between the square and the chisel, there certainly is nothing that cannot be brought to completion." What sage kings used to control the people, what Zaofa used to control horses, what physician Luo 72 used to control illnesses, they all took what they needed from the same basic material. 10/87/1113 10.56 The ruler wills it. The people fulfill it. This is because of his inner sincerity. Before saying a word, he is trusted, without being summoned, they come. Something precedes it. 10/87/15 10.57 Those who are worried about others not knowing them do not know themselves. Arrogance and pride are born from inadequacy. Flamboyance and deceit are born from arrogance. People who have inner sincerity are joyful and unworried. It is like the owl loving to hoot or the bear loving to pace. Where is there anyone who should be arrogant? 10/87/15 17 10.58 In spring the maid grieves. In autumn the warrior mourns. They know that things will transform. 73 With howling or weeping, sighing, and grieving, we recognize sounds that are genuinely actuated. With bearing and visage, rouge and tint, and with bending and stretching, standing and crouching, we recognize feelings that are feigned. Thus the sage trembles at what he keeps within himself and so attains the highest ultimate. 10/87/19, 21 10.59 When a meritorious reputation follows success, that is heaven's doing, when compliant principles meet with acceptance, that is humankind's doing. Grand Duke Wang and Duke Dan of Zhou were not created by heaven for the benefit of King Wu. Marquis Chong and Wu 74 were not engendered by heaven for the benefit of the tyrant Zhao. As with the era, so with the men. 10/87/23, 24 10.60 Education is rooted in the superior man, but the petty man is enriched by it. Profit is rooted in the petty man, but the superior man fattens on its results. Formerly, in the time of Dong Hujitsi, 75 people did not take goods that were left on the road. Hoes and plows and leftover grain were stored at the head of the fields, enabling the superior man and the petty man each to obtain his appropriate share. 76 Thus, when the one man 77 encounters good fortune, the many people depend on it. 78 10/87/26, 27 10.61 Those in the highest position esteem their left side. Thus subordinates say to superiors, "I am on your left." Such is the artful speech of a minister. Those who are below esteem their right side. Thus superiors say to subordinates, "I am on your right." Such is the condescension of the ruler. 79 Thus, if the superior moves to the left, he loses what makes him respected. If the minister shifts to the right, he loses what makes him esteemed. 10/87/29, 30 10.62 Small instances of haste harm the way, false pretenses disrupt the proper order. When Zikin drafted his writings, lawsuits proliferated, even though there was no depraved intent. 80 If you lose touch with your feelings, your words will be obstructed. 10/88/1, 210.63 The way of perfecting a country is that tradesmen should have no false dealings, farmers should have no wasted labor, scholars should take no clandestine actions, officials should make no evasion of the laws. It is analogous to someone setting out nets. When he pulls on the guide rope, the myriad eyes open. 10/88/4, 5 10.64 Shun and you did not accept the mandate of heaven the second time it was offered. 81 What Yao and Shun transmitted 82 was great, but it first took shape in something small. He tested Shun with the royal wives, extended it to the brothers as well. When he abdicated clan and state, 83 The whole world followed his example. Thus, with weapons, one uses what is great to understand what is small, with humankind, one uses what is small to understand what is great. 10/88/5, 7 10.65 The way of the superior man is close but cannot be attained, low but cannot be ascended, contains nothing inside it, but cannot be filled. It is enduring yet brilliant, far-reaching yet illustrious. To understand this and so follow the way is something that cannot be sought in others but only attained from the self. If you abandon the search within yourself and seek it in others, you will have strayed far from it. 10/88/9, 10.66 The superior man has ample joy but insufficient reputation. The petty man has insufficient joy but ample reputation. When one looks at the difference between being ample and being insufficient, they are clearly very far apart. To hold something noxious in your mouth and not spit it out, or to have something in your feelings and not let it blossom forth, these are things that have never been heard of. 10/88/12, 13 10.67 The superior man ponders rightness and does not anticipate profit. The petty man craves profit and does not regard rightness. The master said, both weeping said, "Oh, what to do? You took advantage of me." Their sorrow was the same, but the reasons for it were different. Thus sorrow and joy penetrate deeply into people's feelings. 84 10/88/13, 15 10.68 If digging ditches and damming ponds is not done properly, it will overwork and distress the people. If each project planner follows his own desire, disorder will result. The feelings behind their actions are the same, but the way each applies those feelings to people is different. 85 Thus Tan Yao and Yu Shun strove daily, thereby leading to their kingships. Ji and Zhao erred daily, thereby leading to their deaths, without knowing that later ages would condemn them. 10/88/17, 19 10.69 Human feelings are such that people are joyful when they avoid what brings them suffering and sorrowful when they lose what brings them joy. Thus, knowing the joy of life, you will necessarily know the sorrow of death. 10/88/21 10.70 If you have rightness, you cannot be deceived by profit. If you have courage, you cannot be intimidated by fear. Similarly, those who are starving and thirsty cannot be deceived with an empty bowl. When people multiply desires, they decrease rightness. When people multiply anxieties, they injure knowledge. When people multiply fears, they injure courage. 10/88/23, 24 10.71 Rudeness is born of the petty man. Even the barbarian man and ye can behave like that. Goodness is born of the superior man. Radiantly it rivals the brilliance of the sun and moon. No one in the world can restrain or repress it. Thus, a well-governed state rejoices in the means by which it is preserved, a perishing state rejoices in the means by which it is lost. 10/88/26, 27 10.72 If metal 86 and tin are not melted, they cannot be poured into the mold. If the ruler's anxious concern is not sincere, he cannot serve as a model for the people. If his anxious concern is not grounded in the people, the ruler will cut his ties to them. If the ruler returns to the root, his ties to the people will be firm. 10/88/29, 30 10.73 The utmost potency is attained when small matters are completed and great matters are initiated. Duke Huan of Qi initiated great matters but was not attentive to details. Duke Wen of Jin 87 was attentive to details but did not initiate great matters. Duke Wen obtained what he wanted within his private quarters but failed beyond the borders. Duke Huan failed within his private quarters but obtained what he wanted at court. 10/89/1, 210.74 Water flows downward, becoming wide and great. The ruler puts himself below his minister, becoming comprehensive and brilliant. If the ruler does not contend with his ministers for achievement, the way of governing will prevail. Guan Yu Wu and Bailey Shi 88 were the ones who properly aligned and brought to completion their various achievements. Duke Huan of Qi and Duke Mu of Qin 89 merely accepted them and assented to them. 10/89/4, 5 10.75 On a bright day you might confuse east for west, but if you are confused, you have only to see the sun to realize your mistake. Marquis Wu of Huainanzi said to his officials, "You young fellows should not call me old and treat me like a dotard. If I make mistakes, you must point them out to me." Actually, if Marquis Wu had not shown in this way that he was not a dotard, he would in fact have been in his dotage. Thus he grew old but was not ignored. He comprehended the principles by which states are preserved or lost. 10/89/7, 10.76 People do not possess the ability to create, but they possess the ability to act. They possess the ability to act, but they do not possess the ability to perfect. What people do is perfected by heaven. Even if people do good deeds all their lives, if not for heaven, they would not succeed. Even if people do evil deeds all their lives, if not for heaven, they would not fail. Thus, goodness or evil is our own doing, bad or good fortune is not our own doing. Thus the superior man complies with what lies within him, that is all he can do. 10/89/12, 14 10.77 Nature is what is received from heaven, 91 Destiny is what depends on the times. 92 If you possess talent but do not encounter the right era for it, that is heaven's doing. What made Grand Duke Wang strong? What made Prince Baigan a criminal? They both complied with their natures and acted on their intentions. One was harmed, one was benefited. For seeking something there is a way, but attaining it is a matter of destiny. 93 Thus, the superior man can do good but cannot make certain that he will encounter good fortune, cannot bear to do evil but cannot make certain that he will avoid misfortune. 94 10/89/14, 16. 10.78 The ruler is the trunk and roots, his officials are the branches and leaves. A tree's trunk and roots that are not beautiful but whose branches and leaves are luxuriant, such a thing has never been heard of. 95 10/89/18 10.79 In an age that has the way, a man is given to the state. In an age that does not have the way, the state is given to a man. When Yah ruled the world as king, his anxiety did not abate. When he conferred his rulership on Shun, his anxiety disappeared. Anxiously he watched over it, joyfully he gave it to a worthy. To the end he did not consider the benefit of rulership to be his private possession. 10/89/2021 10.80 The myriad things all have some use. Nothing is so small that it is useless. If you view things from the perspective of their uselessness, precious jades are no different from manure. 10/89/23 10.81 Human feelings are such that when encountering harm, people struggle to obtain only the smallest portion, when encountering benefit, they struggle to obtain the largest portion. Thus, when the flavor is the same and one craves a bigger piece of meat, it is certainly because one savors it. When the teacher is the same and one student surpasses the group, it is certainly because he finds joy in the teacher. Who has ever heard of someone setting an outstanding example in something that he neither savored nor enjoyed? 10/89/25, 26 10.82 When the time is right, the superior man advances and obtains it by means of rightness. What good luck does he possess? When the time is not right, he withdraws and yields it by means of rightness. What bad luck does he possess? Thus when Bo Yi starved himself to death at the foot of Mount Chaoyang, it was without personal regrets. He abandoned what he considered worthless and gained what he considered valuable. 10/89/28, 29 10.83 The sprouts of good fortune are flossy and fine, and the birth of bad fortune is tiny and trifling. Since the beginnings of good and bad fortune are tiny as a sprout, people overlook them. Only sages see their beginnings and know their ends. Thus a chronicle says, the wine of Lu was weak and Handan was surrounded, the lamb broth was not poured, and the state of song was endangered. 9610/90/1, 210.84 An enlightened ruler's rewards and punishments are not employed on his own behalf, they are employed for the state. If someone suited the ruler personally but was of no benefit to the state, the ruler would not confer a reward on him. If someone defied the ruler personally but was helpful to the state, he would not impose a punishment on him. 97 Thus King Zhuang of Chu said to Gong Yang, 98 Those who have potency receive rank and emoluments from me. Those who have achievements receive fields and residences from me. Of these two, you do not have even one. I have nothing to give you. It can be said that he did not go beyond his principles. He rejected Gong Yang and also avoided encouraging him. 10/90/4, 7 10.85 The governing of Zhou was supreme. The governing of Shang was good. The governing of Xia was effective. Effective governing is not necessarily good. Good governing is not necessarily supreme. People who have attained the utmost do not envy participating in governing that is effective, nor are they ashamed to take part in governing that is good. They hold steadfastly to their moral potency as they tread the way, and superior and subordinate rejoice in each other without knowing the reason why. 10/90/9, 10.86 Those who possess states were numerous, but Duke Huan of Qi and Duke Wen of Jin are uniquely renowned. On Mount Tai there are 70 royal altars, but the three kings are uniquely known for having followed the way. The ruler does not seek things from his ministers, and the ministers do not borrow things from their ruler. The ruler cultivates what is near and extends his influence to what is far, so that later ages proclaim his greatness. Without encroaching on his neighbors, he achieves a glorious reputation, so that no one compares with him. Thus someone might behave with Xiaoji's 99 perfect propriety but still not be able to challenge his reputation, for certainly no one can attain what he embraced in himself. 10/90/12, 14 10.87 One whose rightness includes a sense of appropriateness is called a superior man. One whose appropriateness abandons a sense of rightness is called a petty man. Penetrating wisdom achieves its goals without exertion. The next best kind exerts itself without becoming worn out, the lowest kind becomes worn out without exerting itself. Men of antiquity tasted the food offered in sacrifice but did not covet it. Men of today covet the sacrificial food but do not care about its taste. 10/90/16, 17 10.88 When singing improves on the score, it is because the score itself is not sufficiently beautiful. Instruments of metal, stone, string, and bamboo bolster and accompany the music, but that still does not suffice to reach the utmost excellence. When people are able to revere the way and practice rightness, happiness and anger are things they can take or leave, their desires are like grass following the wind. 10/90/17, 19 10.89 In the season for picking mulberry leaves, raising silkworms' cocoons, and plowing and planting, the Duke of Shao 100 opened the jails and released the prisoners. Thus the common people all were able to resume their occupations and return to their work. King Wen declined a grant of 1,000 li of land, but requested instead that tyrant Zhao should eliminate the punishment of the roasting beam. 101 Thus in carrying out their duties, sages do not lose the moment in advancing and withdrawing. This is like the saying, in the summer you wear hemp, when you mount a chariot you hold the strap. 10/90/21, 23 10.90 Lao Zi studied under Shang Rong. He got a look at Shang Rong's tongue and understood preserving the soft. 102 Li Zi studied under Huizi. He saw the shadow of his walking stick and understood the principle of following behind. Thus sages do not go ahead of things, and so they constantly control them. Things of this sort are analogous to a stack of firewood. The last logs are laid on top. 103 10/90/25, 26 10.91 People love by means of rightness, gather together by means of cliques, and grow strong by gathering together. For this reason, when moral potency is applied broadly, then might is effective distantly. When rightness is applied parsimoniously, then what is controlled militarily will be small. 10/90/28, 29 10.92 The Wu bell destroyed itself with its sound. The wax lamp melted itself with its brightness. The markings of tigers and leopards attract archers. The agility of monkeys and apes invites pursuit. 104 Thus, Zilu died because of his bravery. Chang Hong 105 was captured because of his cleverness. He could use his cleverness to be clever, but he could not use his cleverness to not be clever. Thus, if you traverse a pass, you cannot tread as straight as a marking cord. If you come out of a forest, you cannot follow a straight path. 106 When traveling at night, your vision becomes obscured, and you lead with your hands. 107 Sometimes situations arise in which clarity of vision is not of much use. 108 If a person can connect to dark obscurity to enter into brilliant brightness, that is someone with whom you can discuss the ultimate. 10/90/32, 10/91/3 10.93 To build its nest, a magpie must know from which way the wind arises. To build its burrow, an otter must know the height of the water. The bright day knows when it will be clear, the shady accord knows when it will be rainy. 109 But if because of this you were to say that human knowledge is inferior to that of birds and beasts, it would not be true. Thus a person who has mastered one skill or investigated one text can explain one corner of a subject but cannot give a comprehensive response. 10/91/5, 6 10.94 Ning Chi beat time on a cow's horn and sang, and Duke Huan raised him up with a great grant of land. Yang Menzi used crying to gain an audience with Lord Men Chang. 110 His tears flowed down so that they soaked his hat strings. Singing and crying are things that anyone can do. You make a sound, it enters someone's ears, it moves his heart, it is something that reaches the essence. Thus you might emulate the models of Tanyao and Yushun, but you will not achieve their communion with the hearts of others. 10/91/8, 10.95 Duke Jian of Qi 111 was murdered because of his weakness, Xiang 112 was put to death because of his fearlessness. Both were unable to attain their way. Thus if you sing without following the notes, the high and low notes will all be the same. Outside the marking chord line or inside the marking chord line, in either case it is not straight. 10/91/12, 13 10.96 The tyrant Zhao made ivory chopsticks, and Jitsi lamented. Liu used figurines in their burials, and Confucius sighed. 113 They saw the beginning and knew the end. 114 Thus water comes out of the mountains and flows into the sea. Grain grows in the fields and is stored in storehouses. Sages see where things begin and know where they will end up. 115 10/91/15, 16 10.97 When waters are muddy, fish gasp for air near the surface. 116 When laws are harsh, the people rebel. 117 When city walls are precipitous, they invariably crumble. When riverbanks are steep, they invariably collapse. Thus Shangyang established laws and was dismembered. Wu Qi instituted mutilating punishments and was torn apart by chariots. 10/91/18, 1910.98 Governing a country is like tuning a SE. If the thick strings are tightened too much, the thin ones will break. Thus if you yank the reins and whip your horses many times, you are not a 1,000-li driver. 10/91/21, 2210.99 The sound that has sound cannot go farther than 100 li. The sound that has no sound extends throughout the 4 seas. For this reason, when emoluments exceed merit, there is harm; when reputation exceeds reality, there is deception. If feelings and actions are in accord and reputation is secondary to them, the arrival of ill or good fortune will not be without reason. 10/91/22, 2310.100 If you personally have bad dreams, you have not yet mastered proper conduct. If a state witnesses unlucky omens, it has not yet mastered good government. For this reason, if at first you are rewarded with the carriage and cap of office, you will not get anything out of it if you have no merit. If later you are punished with the executioner's axe, you will not suffer from it if you have no guilt. If you are in the habit of cultivating what is proper, you will not depart from the way. 10/91/23, 2510.101 The superior man does not say, small acts of goodness are not important enough to do and therefore sets them aside. Small acts of goodness accumulate to become great goodness. He also does not say, small acts of misconduct do not do any harm and therefore does them. Small acts of misconduct accumulate to become great misconduct. For the same reason, a pile of feathers can sink a boat, lots of light things can break an axle. Thus the superior man observes prohibitions even regarding minutiae. 10/92/1, 210.102 A single pleasing act is not sufficient to constitute goodness. Accumulate pleasing acts and they become moral potency. A single hateful act is not sufficient to constitute wrong. Accumulate hateful acts and they will become evil. Thus the reputation for goodness of the 3 dynasties Xia, Shang, and Zhou reflects the accumulated praise of 1,000 years, the reputation for evil of Ji and Zhao reflects the accumulated condemnation of 1,000 years. 10/92/2, 410.103 Heaven has 4 seasons, people have 4 functions. What is meant by the 4 functions? For seeing and giving shape to things, nothing is clearer than the eyes. For hearing and refining things, nothing is keener than the ears. For holding and shutting up something, nothing is firmer than the mouth. For containing and concealing something, nothing is deeper than the heart. When the eyes see the form, the ears hear the sound, the mouth expresses the sincerity, and the heart communicates the essence, the transformation of the 10,000 things will reach their limit. 10/92/6, 810.104 When a territory is enlarged by means of moral potency, the ruler will be respected for his moral potency. This is best. When a territory is enlarged by means of rightness, the ruler will be respected for his rightness. This is next best. When a territory is enlarged by means of might, the ruler will be respected for his might. This is inferior. Thus a pure ruler is a true king, a ruler of mixed qualities is a hegemon. A state that has neither will perish. 118 10/92/10, 1110.105 In the time of the 2 ancients, 119 a phoenix came to the palace. During the 3 dynasties, it came to the gate. In the Zhou, 120 it came to the meadow. As potency became coarser, the phoenix kept itself more distant; as potency becomes more refined, the phoenix will approach more closely. 121 10/92/13, 1410.106 The superior man is sincere in humaneness. When he acts, it is out of humaneness; when he does not act, it is also out of humaneness. The petty man is sincere in his own inhumaneness. When he acts, it is out of inhumaneness; when he does not act, it is also out of inhumaneness. Someone whose goodness comes from the self, rather than coming from others, is a person in whom humaneness and moral potency flourish. Thus, if your feelings overcome your desires, you will flourish. If your desires overcome your feelings, you will perish. 122 10/92/16, 1710.107 If you want to know the way of heaven, examine its cycles. If you want to know the way of earth, differentiate 123 its plants. If you want to know the way of humankind, follow its desires. 10/92/1910.108 Do not startle them, do not frighten them, and the myriad things will set themselves in order. Do not disturb them, do not stir them up, and the myriad things will purify themselves. 10/92/19, 2010.109 If someone has examined just one corner of something, you cannot discuss transformations with him. If someone has investigated only one age, it is not possible to discuss anything of significance with him. The sun does not know the night. The moon does not know the sunshine. The sun and moon make light, but they cannot combine their light with each other. Only heaven and earth can embrace them both. When it comes to being able to encompass heaven and earth, it is said that only the formless can do so. 10/92/20, 2210.110 An arrogant and extravagant ruler has no loyal ministers. A person with a clever mouth says nothing that compels belief. A tree you can span with both hands does not have branches that will hold your weight. A ditch 8 feet wide does not contain fish that can swallow a boat. If the trunk is shallowly rooted, the branches will become stunted. If the root is damaged, the branches will wither away. 10/92/2425 10.111 Good fortune is born of non-action, bad fortune is born of many desires. Harm stems from not preparing, weeds stem from not hoeing. Sages do good as if afraid they will not attain it, they prepare against disaster as if afraid they cannot avoid it. 10/92/25, 26 10.112 To cover yourself with dust and want it not to get in your eyes, to wade in water and want it not to get you wet, these things cannot be done. Thus, those who know themselves do not resent others, those who know their destiny do not resent heaven. 124 Good fortune springs from oneself, bad fortune is born from oneself. 10/92/28, 29 10.113 The sage does not seek praise, nor does he avoid condemnation. He corrects his person and acts with rectitude, and the various evils dissipate of their own accord. Now were he to abandon rectitude and follow the crooked, turn his back on truth and follow the crowd, this would be to consort with the vulgar and to internalize acting without standards. Thus the sage reverts to himself and does not take the lead from others. 10/93/1, 210.114 The way that is written down in chapters and sections, with shape and boundaries, is not the utmost way. You can taste it, but it has no flavor, you can observe it, but it has no form. It cannot be transmitted to others. 10/93/4 10.115 The daji bush expels water, while the tingly plant heals boils. 125 But if you use them without measuring the dose, they will make you ill instead. Many things seem to be of the same sort but are not, only sages know their subtleties. 10/93/6, 710.116 A good charioteer does not neglect his horses. A good archer does not neglect his bow. A good superior does not neglect his subordinates. If he can love genuinely and benefit the people, the world will follow him. If a father can neither love nor benefit his children, then even his own sons will rebel against him. 10/93/9, 1010.117 In the world, something is most highly honored, and it is not power and position, something is most highly valued, and it is not gold and jade, something has the most longevity, and it is not a lifetime of 1,000 years. To return your heart to its original nature is most highly honored, to discipline your feelings to know what is sufficient is most highly valued, to understand the apportionment of life and death is the greatest longevity. 10/93/12, 1310.118 Someone whose words are not always true and whose actions are not always appropriate is a petty person. Someone who has examined into one matter and has mastered one skill is a middle type of person. Gaining or losing the realm but always having it, skilled and capable but using those attributes in a measured way, that is a sage. 10/93/15, 16.